I paid $46,000 for my sister's wedding, bought them a car, and let them live in my home. But treated like the family bank, I cut them off. And what happened next shattered everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm 31, the eldest child, the responsible one, the so-called rock of our family. But if you'd asked me last Thanksgiving who I was, I would have said something softer. I would have told you I was the guy who always showed up, who paid without being asked, who didn't mind being the background character every family gathering as long as everyone else was smiling. I was the one who paid for my sister's college tuition, the one who co-signed my parents' mortgage when Dad's credit tanked, the one who fixed broken sinks, bought groceries without keeping receipts, and wired money with a smiley face emoji in the memo line. I thought I was building something real with them, something unshakable, but I was wrong. It exploded on Thanksgiving, the last one I'll ever host. Everyone was gathered around the long oak table in my dining room. I'd refinished it myself 2 summers ago, sanding it down in the garage while my sister Becca drank iced lattes in the shade and scrolled through Pinterest for her wedding decor. She wanted a rustic chic theme. She didn't know what sanding really involved. A turkey was carved, the candles flickered, everyone had their wine, and then came the toasts. It was supposed to be light, fun, a little gratitude, a little laughter. Becca clinked her glass and stood up, swaying slightly in her heels. "I just want to thank Mom and Dad," she said, glowing, "for always being there for me, for helping me and Ryan through everything this year, for being real family." There was a pause. "And of course," she added with a smirk, "Daniel, for, paying for stuff." A few chuckles followed, not for me. My fork froze midair. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I waited for someone, anyone, to add something, to soften the blow, to say, "Actually, Daniel did a lot more than that." But all I heard was my mom's laugh, loud and proud. "Well, honey, what are big brothers for?" And just like that, I wasn't at my own table anymore. I was 8 again, watching Becca cry her way out of trouble, while I stood in the corner, silent and blamed. I was 16, handing over my birthday money for her phone bill. 23, wiring my first bonus check to my parents so they wouldn't stress. 31, still the walking ATM. I pushed my chair back from the table. The movement wasn't violent or theatrical, just deliberate enough to cut through the ambient chatter and clinking of silverware. The conversations died mid-sentence. Every eye turned toward me as I stood, my napkin falling silently to the floor beside my untouched plate. "I need some air," I announced, my voice steady despite the tremor building in my chest. The words hung in the dining room like smoke from a snuffed candle. That's when Mom's head lifted from her wine glass, her lipstick leaving a faint burgundy stain on the rim. She fixed me with that particular look I'd seen 1,000 times before, the one that preceded every lecture about gratitude, every guilt trip disguised as maternal wisdom. Her voice cut through the silence with surgical precision. "Oh, don't be so sensitive, Daniel. You're not the one hurt here." The words hit me like ice water. I froze mid-step, my hand still reaching for the patio door handle. Sensitive? Not the one hurt? The irony was so thick I could taste it. Here I was, the man who had quietly absorbed every slight, every dismissal, every casual erasure of my contributions to this family, and somehow I was being cast as the oversensitive one. The victim. Apparently that role was already taken by someone else at this table. In that crystalline moment, standing between my family and my escape route, everything clicked into place with devastating clarity. They didn't see me. Not really, not ever. To them, I wasn't Daniel the brother, Daniel the son. I was Daniel the resource, Daniel the solution to every problem, Daniel the silent bank account with legs. And what happened next? Well, they never saw that coming either. You want the full story? Fine. Here it is. 3 years ago, my sister Becca called me in tears. She and Ryan, her boyfriend of 6 months, were accidentally pregnant and didn't know what to do. Our parents were furious. Dad wouldn't even speak to her. Mom said she'd pray on it, which in our family was code for figure it out without us. So Becca came to me. "I just need some time, Daniel," she whispered over the phone, "just until we get on our feet." I had just moved into my first real house, a 3-bedroom place in Kirkland with a home office and a tiny backyard. I'd saved for years, delayed vacations, skipped bonuses, worked weekends. It was supposed to be my reset. Instead, it became theirs. Of course, I said, "Come stay with me." They moved in 2 weeks later, bringing nothing, no crib, no dishes, no plan, just boxes of clothes and a used air fryer Becca claimed she couldn't live without. That was the beginning. What followed was a slow, exhausting erasure of boundaries. My boundaries. At first it was temporary, Then, just until the baby comes. Then, until after the wedding. Then, until we save for a deposit. Except they never saved. I paid for the groceries. I covered the utilities. I even put down $12,000 for Becca's emergency C-section when their insurance fell through. Ryan said he'd pay me back. He never brought it up again. And still, I didn't complain because that's who I was in this family. The fixer. The day Ryan's car broke down, he stormed into my office mid-meeting and said, "Hey man, we're stranded. You think you can help us out with a car?" I thought he meant an Uber. I was wrong. They came back from the dealership 2 days later with a used Jeep Cherokee in my name. "My name, just temporary," Becca said, "until we refinance." "You've got good credit. Why not use it?" My chest burned. I couldn't even argue. I'd already signed the paperwork, and I kept telling myself, this is what family does. But the worst part? It wasn't just the money. It was the silence that followed every time I asked for respect. Like when I asked them to clean up after themselves, Ryan smirked, "You're acting like a landlord." Or when I mentioned maybe setting a move-out deadline, Becca laughed. "So now you're kicking out your niece?" Wow. Every time I tried to draw a line, they made me feel like the villain, like I was selfish, cruel. My mom reinforced it. "You know, your sister's been through a lot," she'd say, voice dripping with guilt. "You're the stable one. You can help, so why wouldn't you?" But she never asked what I needed. Not when I took on a second freelance job to stay afloat, not when I stopped dating because there was a baby crib in my guest room, not when I started therapy to process the anxiety of coming home to 2 adults who never knocked, and a baby that screamed through every Zoom call. They didn't see me unraveling. Because I didn't unravel loudly, I just shut down. And then came the wedding. Becca wanted a lakefront ceremony, a boho chic barn reception, custom floral arches, a live string quartet. Price tag? $46,000. "Mom says you'd be happy to cover it," she texted. No question mark. "No, please." When I hesitated, she called. "I mean, you are walking me down the aisle," she said with a giggle. "It's symbolic. You're basically giving me away. Might as well give me the day, too." I stared at the floor. My therapist's words echoed in my head. "You're not their wallet, Daniel." But then Mom called. "It's her only wedding, sweetie. Don't make this about money." I caved again. I paid the deposit. I sent the vendors their checks. I even covered Ryan's tux rental when he forgot. And on the wedding day, I wasn't even mentioned in the toast. "I'm so grateful for my husband," Becca said, beaming, "and my amazing parents who supported me every step of the way." I clapped with everyone else. And when Mom caught my eye and mouthed, "Thank you," I thought for a fleeting second that maybe it was all worth it, until the texts started coming in. Messages from mutual friends, distant cousins. "Hey, just wondering, why didn't your name show up on the wedding website? Wait, didn't you pay for everything? Why is Ryan's uncle listed as the sponsor?" Becca had left me out of her own narrative. I wasn't her brother, I was her bank. But the breaking point hadn't come yet. Not until 2 months later when I finally asked them to start looking for their own place. I said it gently, carefully. "Hey, just checking in on your timeline. I can help you budget if you want, but I think it's time." Becca blinked at me. "Oh, so you're done with us now," Ryan muttered. "Figures." Thought it was too good to be true. And that night the message came from Mom. A single text, no hello. I'd rather lose my son than lose my daughter. I read it twice. And something inside me shattered, not like glass, not loud, but like bone, clean, final. I didn't reply right away. I sat in the dark, my phone glowing in my hand, and realized this wasn't just about Becca. This was my entire family's sickness, and I'd spent my whole life feeding it. No more. I typed one line. Perfect. "Now pay for everything yourselves." Then I called the bank. I revoked the Jeep registration, I shut off the utilities, I froze the wedding account, and just when I thought it was over, 10 minutes later the doorbell rang. I didn't order anything, but the box on my doorstep had my name on it. And inside, something I never expected. Inside the box was a stack of wedding photos. My sister's wedding, the one I paid for. Dozens of glossy prints, smiling faces, champagne glasses, custom flower arrangements I'd written a check for, but not a single photo of me. Not one. No shots of me walking Becca down the aisle. No candid moments, no toast, no mention. There was a note tucked between the pictures, written in my mother's cursive. "We thought you'd want to keep these as a memory. Family is what matters most." My hands trembled. Memory? I was being left out in real time and they wanted me to frame it. I didn't wait. I grabbed my phone and opened the family group chat. The one where I'd mostly been silent for months, the one where they'd coordinated every event I funded but never attended anything I cared about. And I wrote, "Since family matters most, let's talk about what this family actually looks like." Then I attached the screenshots, the $46,000 transfer for the wedding, the car lease agreement in my name, the bank receipts from their months of rent-free living, the text where Becca wrote, "You're lucky you're not married, you don't have real responsibilities," and Mom's message, "I'd rather lose my son than my daughter." I added one last sentence, "You've mistaken kindness for naivety." Then I hit send. Silence for 4 full minutes. Then came the explosion. First Mom, calling nonstop, then Becca, "What? Daniel, are you trying to embarrass me?" And, "Ryan, this is low even for you." Low? For sharing the truth. I didn't reply. I wasn't done yet. I logged into the shared utility accounts and removed my payment info. Called the dealership and initiated repossession. Ryan had missed 2 payments anyway. Told them where the car was parked. Then I logged into the wedding registry site, they'd never taken it down, and left a public note on my own donation, gift withdrawn. Groom's brother not credited for financing the entire wedding. It took 2 hours for Becca to notice. She FaceTimed me at 11:52 p.m. Mascara streaked down her face like a soap opera character. "Daniel, are you seriously trying to ruin my life?" I stared at the screen. "You already ruined mine. You said you wanted to help." "I said I wanted to support my family," I cut in. "I didn't say I wanted to be used." "You're so dramatic," she scoffed, and I laughed, really laughed, because that's how far gone she was. She thought this was drama. "You stole from me," I said calmly. "Lied to me, gaslit me. And now you're shocked I finally stopped funding your delusion." In the background, I heard Mom yelling, "Tell him we're done with him if he doesn't fix this." So I leaned into the camera and said, "Perfect. Be done. You've never had a problem pretending I didn't exist. Keep that energy." Then I hung up and blocked them. Every number, every account, every backup email, gone. But they weren't done. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Dad, the man who'd spent a decade playing neutral while my mom pulled the strings. "Son, you're overreacting. You know your sister's sensitive. What you did, it's aggressive." "Aggressive? I paid for their survival for 3 years. I bought them a car, a wedding, a life, and now I was aggressive. No, I was awake." By the end of that week, everything changed. Becca and Ryan were served a notice to vacate legally. I consulted a lawyer. Their stay had never been formalized, which made it easier. I didn't even have to go to court. They tried guilt. They tried begging. They tried rage. Mom even left a voicemail crying, "We're a family. Families fight, but they don't abandon each other." But that's exactly what they'd done to me for years. I made one last post on social media. Nothing vindictive, just honest. It's not selfish to set boundaries. It's not cruel to say no. It's not dramatic to walk away from people who only show up when they need something. I've spent my whole life confusing loyalty with martyrdom. Not anymore. Then I turned off my phone for a week. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. No buzz of guilt, no calls demanding money, no invisible weight of being everyone's savior, just silence. And in that silence, I remembered who I was before I became their safety net. They moved out on a Tuesday. No thank you, no goodbye, just a slammed door, a dented fridge, and a text from Ryan that said, "Hope life teaches you a lesson." I didn't reply. I walked through my house that night, bare walls, empty rooms, and felt something I hadn't in years, relief. The air was lighter. The silence wasn't lonely. It was mine. The guest room was no longer a nursery. The kitchen counter wasn't cluttered with takeout boxes. My fridge no longer had passive-aggressive notes about almond milk or too much garlic in the food I paid for. They were gone, and something inside me clicked. The very next morning, I rearranged my office, put up bookshelves, moved in a leather reading chair, and reclaimed my space. Then I did something wild. I booked a solo trip to Iceland. 10 days, no itinerary, no family emergencies, no babysitting grown adults, just me, a rented Jeep, and a frozen landscape that didn't ask me for anything. I hiked volcanic cliffs, bathed in glacial lagoons, stood under the northern lights, and felt, for the first time in over a decade, small in a good way, not crushed, not cornered, not responsible for everyone else's disasters, just alive. While I was away, Becca texted from a new number. "Just so you know, we're living with Mom and Dad now. They welcomed us with open arms. Some families still care about loyalty." I laughed out loud in the middle of a Reykjavik cafe. Of course, she'd spin it like that. What she didn't say, that Mom and Dad were fighting, that the house was too small, that Ryan had already borrowed money from Dad and accidentally used his credit card for DoorDash. Amelia, our cousin, kept me updated. "They're cracking," she said in one message. "Now that you're out of the picture, the stress is turning inward. Apparently, when I stopped being the scapegoat, they turned on each other. Mom accused Dad of enabling Becca. Dad blamed Becca for taking advantage. Becca screamed that I'd poisoned the family. And Ryan? He vanished for a week and came back with a tattoo and a new vape business idea. The texts from Amelia became darker. Your mom told me you're dead to her. Becca is saying you never really helped. Just wanted to look like a hero. Ryan's trying to sell the Jeep on Facebook Marketplace even though it's repossessed. They were spiraling. And I was thriving. Back in Seattle, I started dating again, joined a hiking group, got promoted at work again, bought myself a motorcycle, not because I needed it, but because I wanted it. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a cog in the machine of my family's chaos. I was building my life, curating it, and people noticed. Friends I hadn't seen in years reached out. One of them, Jamie, hugged me at a dinner party and said, "Daniel, you look lighter, like you finally dropped a boulder you didn't know you were carrying." I smiled because that's exactly what it was. The boulder was never mine to carry. It was everyone else's weight they dumped on me and guilted me into lifting, and I'd finally let it crash to the ground. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was free. The only time I flinched was 2 weeks ago when I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar, Mom's. The letter started soft. "Daniel, I've been praying for you. I hope you're doing well. The house feels empty without your voice." Then came the pivot. "Becca is struggling. She's been very emotional. I know she's made mistakes, but family should forgive." And finally, the ask, "We were wondering if you could help them get back on their feet. Just a little support, short term." I read it twice. Then I lit it on fire, watched it curl and blacken in a ceramic bowl on my patio. And as the smoke rose into the air, I whispered, "I forgive you, but I'm not coming back." A month ago, I was sitting at a rooftop bar downtown alone, sipping bourbon, watching the sun melt into the skyline. It was my birthday. No calls, no texts, not from Mom, not from Becca, not even a fake, guilt-laced Facebook post. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. I didn't sit by the phone waiting. I didn't feel that old sting of being forgotten. I just watched the sky burn orange and whispered to myself, "You did it. You made it out." I used to think family meant obligation, that love was proven by sacrifice, that you gave until it hurt and then gave more. But that's not love. That's servitude. And I was done being the willing prisoner in someone else's drama. People ask me if I miss them. I miss the idea of them. The idea of a mother who protected me, a sister who respected me, a family that saw me as more than what I could provide. But those were never real. What was real? The debt, the betrayal, the silence when I needed support, the manipulation dressed up as tradition. The way they smiled when I gave and turned cruel when I stopped. That was real. And I've grieved it, not like a sudden death, but like a long illness that finally took its last breath. I don't hate them. I just refuse to shrink for them anymore. Because here's the truth no one wants to say. Blood doesn't excuse abuse. Being family doesn't give anyone the right to drain you, blame you, or erase you when it's convenient. I spent 31 years being the good son, the generous brother, the quiet supporter. I thought if I just gave a little more, they'd finally see me. But they saw me the whole time. They just didn't care until I stopped. Now my life is quiet, peaceful, rooted. I've started therapy full-time, not just to process what happened, but to make sure I never repeat the pattern. I've built a new family, friends who call to check in without needing anything, colleagues who celebrate my wins, a partner who tells me, "You don't owe me the world. I just want you, and that's enough." I keep a photo on my desk, not of Becca, not of my parents, not even of the wedding I funded and got erased from. It's a photo I took on my solo trip, standing on a black sand beach in Iceland, waves crashing behind me, arms outstretched like I was catching the wind, no one else in the frame, just me smiling, free. That photograph serves as a daily reminder of a truth that took me 3 decades to fully grasp. Choosing myself doesn't make me selfish, it makes me human. I'm not cruel for drawing boundaries. I'm finally awake. For years, I convinced myself that martyrdom was love, that bleeding for others proved my worth. But standing on that black sand beach, arms stretched wide against the Icelandic wind, I understood something profound. I had spent my entire adult life apologizing for taking up space, for wanting respect, for expecting reciprocity. No more. If my refusal to be their endless well of resources casts me as the antagonist in their narrative, then I accept that role gladly. I would rather be the villain in their twisted story than the victim in my own life. The fire I'm walking away from isn't just their manipulation, it's the burning need to prove myself worthy of love through sacrifice. I spent years throwing myself back into those flames, thinking each time I'd emerge stronger, more valued. Instead, I only grew more scarred, more hollow, more convinced that pain was the price of belonging. But I'm done paying that price. I'm constructing something entirely different now, a life where healing isn't a constant requirement, where the people who claim to love me don't leave me emotionally bankrupt. The contrast is startling. In this new existence, relationships feel like gardens rather than battlefields, nurturing rather than draining. Last week's encounter with Aunt Rachel at the grocery store crystallized everything. She froze when she spotted me in the produce section, her eyes wide as if she'd seen a specter from the family's buried shame. For a moment, I braced myself for another guilt trip, another person ready to tell me how I'd destroyed everything. Instead, she approached slowly and wrapped me in the kind of embrace I'd forgotten existed, one without conditions, without hidden agendas. Her whispered words hit me like absolution. "I'm proud of you, Daniel. You were the only one brave enough to walk away." For the first time in my life, I didn't deflect the praise or minimize my actions. I didn't rush to explain or justify. I simply stood there and let myself believe it, that courage sometimes looks like saying no, that bravery sometimes means disappointing people, that love sometimes requires distance. That evening, something shifted inside me as I sat at my kitchen table with my journal, the house quiet around me like a sanctuary. The words flowed onto the page with startling clarity, as if they'd been waiting years to be written. "I will not be guilted into smallness. I will not carry what others refuse to own. I am not their scapegoat. I am not their savior. I am my own." Reading those words back felt like reciting an oath, a covenant with the man I was finally becoming. I had them framed the next day, not as decoration but as a daily reminder of the promise I made to myself. Never again would I shrink to make others comfortable with their own dysfunction. 2 days ago, I got an email from Ryan, a simple subject line. "Hey man, I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would say, a half-hearted apology, a new financial emergency, a request framed as a chance to reconnect. But I'm not available anymore, not for that version of them. Instead, I took my partner on a weekend getaway. We unplugged, laughed, drank wine by the fire, and when I told them the full story for the first time, the whole ugly, exhausting truth, they didn't flinch. They just said, 'You deserved better, you still do, and I believe that too. So now, when someone asks for more than I can give, I'll remember the doorbell, that box with my name on it, the pictures without me, the moment I finally drew the line, and I'll say without guilt, without apology, no, not this time. Because I'm not their bank, I'm not their fixer, I'm not their sacrifice. I'm Daniel, and I'm finally free.